Hello friends, and welcome to another video lesson from DBOS Talks. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified of new uploads. This is the latest video in a playlist called SQL Developer Tips, and here we'll be learning how to know detailed information about a table. For those who haven't watched the first video in this series, Oracle SQL Developer, or simply called SQL Developer, is the GUI, graphical user interface tool of Oracle, which comes bundled when you download and install the Oracle database. So again, if you are you will not be using Oracle database for business, then it's okay to download it for free from the Oracle website as long as you have an Oracle account with you. But if you are planning to use Oracle database, the software for business, then it's just proper and right to license it. Okay, so that's clear. So this is SQL Developer. Okay, Oracle SQL Developer. First, let me explain the concept of null. Okay, Null is, you'll be seeing it in this table's details a lot, and it's good to understand what it is. So null isn't the same as zero. It's not the same as zero. It's not the same as blank. It's not the same as a dash. It's not the same as a space created by a space bar. So null simply means no value in plain language, or simply blank. It doesn't have a length of character in it, so that's null. Now let's take a look at a table called help. Okay, so I'll do a query on a table called help. All right, so select asterisk from help. Help is the table name, and in the data grid we can see 3 columns: topic, SEQ, which is sequence, and then info, which means information. Okay, so that's easy to understand. This very common command, the most common command in SQL, is select asterisk from something. So I'm showing you this because later on you will see the how useful the one we'll be learning today will be related to this. Okay, so what we did was, this statement allows us to look at the data in a table, in this case the table called help. However, if you wanted to know other details pertaining to that table, SQL Developer gives us those without the need to type SQL commands such as this. Okay, so as you know, we zoomed in on a table called help. So what I can do, example, the navigator pane on your panel on the left side is like this. You look for the tables node, which is this one highlighted in blue. You expand that, the plus button, and you look for the table you're interested in. So in this case, I'm looking for the table called help. I'll click on that, and it gives me, if you look on the right side of your screen, it gives me a couple of tabs, information, which are placed in multiple tabs. Okay, let's go one by one. We will just cover the main ones so that you are not overloaded with information. And these main ones that I'll be talking about in this video are those that you'll really be using most frequently at work, okay? So let's start with the first one. We are now at the tab called columns, okay? So in the columns tab, this is the equivalent of the SQL command describe. In Oracle, you have, I'm not sure about the other flavors of SQL, but at least in Oracle, there is a describe command which can simply be written as desk. Okay, so when you desk and then you follow by the table name, it will give you information in text form similar to this. Okay, so this columns tab gives you the table structure, the structure of the table. We can go one by one. The column called column name, as simply put, as the name it suggests, it gives you the names of the columns of the table. So the table has 3 columns, the first one being called topic, the second is sec, which is sequence, the third being information. The second column is data type, which is, as the name suggests, the type of data. So meaning this column called topic contains varchar2 data. The sequence column contains number, numeric, and info contains varchar2. Okay, so everybody knows what a number is. Every adult knows what a number is. So that's clear what a number is. I'll talk a little bit about varchar2. So what is varchar2? It is, in plain language, it is a data type that holds character data. Okay, so when we say character, it means not only letters and numbers, but all the other characters that can be typed into the computer. At the very basic, everything that you see in your keyboard represents a character. The space, except backspace, okay? Except backspace. Because backspace is not a character, but it's a key for you to erase something, okay? And also delete. But for the rest, it is equivalent to a character. Except also the function keys, okay? So some caveat there. So I'm talking about the A to Z or A to Z, wherever you may be from, or the numbers 0 to 9, or the special characters, the underscore, the dash, hyphen, slash, backslash, asterisk. So all those are called characters, okay? So they can be defined into this kind of data. It's varchar2. This is an Oracle terminology. Okay, if you go to some other flavors of SQL, it could be slightly different. They could call it char. In Java, it's a string. String is a class, not a data type. Okay, so that's, in this example, you are seeing 2 types of data, character and number. Okay, the next column is nullable. Null, that's why at the beginning of the video, I talked about null, because it will be mentioned a couple of times and will be seen a couple of times in this demonstration. Okay, null simply means nothing. So when we say a column is nullable, it means it is not mandatory to have a value. So in this case, we're looking at the column topic and it's nullable, no, meaning the rules of the way the table has been created is that it doesn't allow you to have blank or no value for topic. It must have a value. So if it's nullable, yes, this means this column, info column, may be null. It is allowed that you have a record. I'll show you a record later and we will go to the data tab. Okay, meaning that in that record, in each record of the table, the column info may or may not have value, and that's okay. It will be allowed by the table's own definition and rules. Okay, data default, this column. Again, you will see null. Null again, what is it? It is something like, it is in plain language, it is just nothing, no value. It is not equivalent to space. It is not equivalent to 0. It is no value, nothing. So data default, meaning this column is reserved for a default value. In case this column doesn't have a value when you inserted that record, values for the record, then it will assign something to it. In this case, nothing has been defined, so it will give no data, default values. Column ID is, at the very basic, is a unique identifier for each of the columns here, a numeric identifier. But it is the other purpose it's serving is that when you do a select statement and you use an order by clause to do a sorting of the data to be displayed, then you can use this as some kind of, if I may call it, numeric or cardinal, I'm sorry, ordinal alias, if I can call it that. Meaning, if I say order by sec, I can also say order by, no, it's not, actually that one, I don't know. So that alias is depending on the, I'll correct myself. The order by one, order by two is dependent on the how you mention the select list. Okay, so it's another conversation. Okay, you can just think of this as numeric identifiers for each of the columns. Okay, so when you look at the data, okay, I'll move on. Okay, just before I jump, okay, comments, again, comments. Null means nothing. So these are just a placeholder for any additional information you wanted to put there. Example, the column name is quite cryptic. Example, sec. Just imagine, just pretend you don't know. It doesn't give you any idea what sec means. You have no hint that it could mean sequence. So the guy who created the table, could be the DBA, could be the developer, could put some comments here to describe this column, okay? But in this case, they're all not meaning nothing, okay? Now let's jump to the tab called data. So as the name suggests, it contains data. And if you look at it, it's actually the equivalent of executing this statement, select asterisk from the table, help. It's the same. It may not look very similar, but you can see topic, sequence, info. Let's look here. Topic, sequence, info. So this is the equivalent of doing a query on this table without any conditions. Okay, that's data. And each one here is called a row. Each one that I'm highlighting is a row. This is where I'm saying, let's say, in the column it says nullable. No, that means that column can never be blank. Okay, so let's see. Column topic can never be blank because nullable, no. Let's go to data tab. So topic cannot be blank. It has a value. And if you will ask me why, then you can go and check out my other playlist, which is devoted to SQL tutorial on Oracle, and you will see why does it need a value. Okay, so this is the data tab, which is the equivalent of select asterisk or a query into this table. Okay, let's jump into the tab called constraints. Okay, so if you will think of constraints, this tab shows constraints of the table. So what you will ask, what are constraints? One, even outside IT, you could, if you're familiar with the word constraint, it's some kind of limitation. Similarly, in IT, it's like that, especially in our DBMS, Relational Database Management System. If you want to know more about constraints, you can also check out my playlist called SQL Tutorial Series. But just to give you an idea, constraints are limits in my own simplified definition. There are limits that help in validating data to ensure data integrity. Data, what kind of data? Data in the table. Okay, so here, when you say integrity, you know, when a person is a man of integrity, then you tend to believe that what he says is right. He's not lying. Same thing with data. If data has integrity, you are bent on believing the data is reliable. So here at constraints tab, we see two kinds of constraints, at least. There could be, not could be, there are really more than two. But in this example, we're seeing two kinds of constraints. Okay, so we have constraint name, constraint type. These are the columns of the constraints tab. But if I click on one constraint, the one called primary key, you will see at the bottom pane, at the bottom panel, that it shows two records, topic and sequence. What primary key, just to give you a very quick definition, is a constraint on a table. It's a limitation to enforce data integrity. And its main intent is to define a the uniqueness of a record. Okay, so meaning each record, if you go to the data tab again, this is a record, this is a record. A record in RDBMS lingo, it doesn't matter if you're in Oracle, Informix, DB2, PostgreSQL, as long as it's RDBMS. This is called a record, or sometimes it's called a row, okay? So going back to constraints, when we say primary key constraint, we're saying the combination of these two columns, topic and sequence, must be unique. Okay, let's go back, topic and sequence. Let's go to data. So meaning the combination of topic and sequence must be unique. Here you have a topic equals at, sequence is 1, meaning there can never be another row here with the same combination of topic and sequence. It's a no-no. That's the meaning of this primary key constraint. Okay, the combination, a primary key may be single column only. In this case, this is a composite primary key column. It's defined on 2 columns. It can be more. So it just says that, it just means that the combination of the values of these 2 columns must be unique in the whole table. Okay, I hope it's quite clear. So there's another kind of constraint here. You can check out my tutorial series on SQL in another playlist. But just briefly, it's a check constraint. As the name suggests, it's a constraint that enforces Oracle to check that this condition is correct, okay, or is being followed. Let's in the search condition it says topic is not null, so that's what it will check. Here, sequence is not null. That's what it will check. It will enforce it, okay, like a rule. Okay, let's jump to grants tab. This tab shows privileges given to a user or role with regards to the table. So we're talking about the table called help. So grants tab contains privileges. You know what privilege is? I'm sure. So in this case, there is one privilege called select, granted to the public. Public, I don't mean the people outside, but it's just a term in database lingo, meaning it's to a bigger, it pertains to the database users, okay, those whose, it doesn't mean a person, but we're talking about database user accounts, okay, it's a long story. But anyway, so grants tab contains privileges on an object. In this case, the object is the table help. So meaning, select privilege is being granted to the public for the object called help, which is a table. Okay, so that's grants. Let's jump to the tab called statistics. Okay, this tab contains important table statistical data, which are very useful, especially for DBA, database administrator, when doing a system investigation, like example, performance related, while zooming in on a particular table. So there are a couple of info here, and this is one of the things that the DBA is most interested about when investigating, let's say, a slowness in the performance of a certain table. Then it will try to drill down, and one of the things to look at are the statistics, the database statistics, especially specific to that table. So you can see a couple of them. Num rows means the number of rows in a table. Now this value is not always accurate, meaning this value was gathered when the DBA or somebody who knows the command executed the gather stats command. This is more, I think it's Oracle centric. I'm not sure about the other flavors. So blocks, data blocks, so average row length, sample size. These are information that are primarily of interest to a DBA, but to some extent, a developer himself must start getting to know, these, how to interpret and how to utilize this kind of information pertaining to a table. Okay, statistics. Let's go to triggers tab. So triggers, in this case, there is no trigger defined. So a trigger is also a database object of its own. You can see it in the navigation panel here. You can see here triggers here, triggers. Okay, so it's also a database object. It's it gets triggered by a database event, either a system event such as a reboot, or a DML command. In SQL lingo, DML is data manipulation language, and these are commands such as insert, update, delete, which are the ones that trigger a change in data, in a data. So a trigger is usually used for IT audit purposes, like keeping records or keeping tabs of who did what on a table, especially a table. Okay, example, if somebody, we have a very important table, a transaction kind of table in a banking system. And it is very sensitive because if you don't keep tabs on it, then people, those who have bad intentions, could just insert records to let's say pad their own bank accounts. Okay, so an audit in IT, in the IT industry, having audit is also very important because it helps the managers and the engineers and whoever are in charge, the DBA. It helps them monitor if anything is fishy. Okay, so to accomplish this, in database, there's a database object called trigger. And in this case, if you see records here, then these are database triggers defined on the table help. Let's say every time somebody does an insert, update, or delete, then a trigger will create a record telling a story like who did that change and when and what kind of change was that. Okay, that kind of thing. And this information will be kept in an audit table. Okay, that's the triggers. Let's jump to indexes. Okay, so if there are indexes defined for this table, which is the case here, you will see them in this tab. An index is, just to put it simply, is also a DB object, a database object, and it's used to speed up the process of accessing data from a table. Okay, there are a few kinds of indexes. Okay, I'm not a DBA, but we can talk about it in some other video. Okay, just get to know that in the indexes table, usually at the very, very plain definition, index is something that helps to speed up how accessing table. You can imagine a book in the good old days that we had all these physical books. And if you look at the very back of the book, of a book, then you'll find the section called index, which is an alphabetical listing of most of the topics in a book. And it will help you jump to the relevant page or pages pertaining to that topic. So it's the same concept, the index on a table. Okay. Now let's go to the most important, probably the most important tab here, maybe second or at least for most or second most important tab, that is SQL. So it varies, it doesn't have a very fixed, when you go from table to table, you go to company, database to database, the contents here might vary a little bit here and there, but at the very basic, it will show you a DDL, the DDL statement of the database object in question. Right now, we're looking at a table called help. So what you are seeing is the DDL statement. DDL, data definition language, is one of the DDL commands is create. So this is the command to create this table. Okay, it ends at the semicolon. So in Oracle, the semicolon is the terminator for one command. Okay, so like I said, it is not rigid from table to table, meaning they don't have exactly the same kind of statement, but there will be, the basics are here. The create statement for the object, in this case, is a table. Okay, you can later on you'll learn about other things like schema and stuff. So create statement for the table, it mentions the columns. Okay, and if that table has an index, then it will be mentioned here. If that table is a constraint, it will be mentioned here. See, constraint, the one we saw earlier. So it's also here. And at the somewhere below are information that are, again, interesting and helpful to a DBA. See, statistics, computer statistics, storage, initial, min extents, max extents. These are information that are very important to a DBA. Buffer, table space, these are really very important to a DBA. And to some extent, developer must also start to get a good understanding of these terminologies and how they work, how they help. Okay, table space here. Okay, and then at the bottom we have a grant statement. So meaning, grant, we have discussed in the grants tab here, which pertains to privileges granted to a user or to a role pertaining to an object. Okay, so in this case, it's granting. This statement is supposed to grant select privilege on this object owned by system schema to the public. Public is not a user, it could be a role. Okay, so that is the content of the SQL tab. Like I said, it will vary from company to company, database to database. They will have their own spin to it, but the basics are there. Right now, we're talking about the information that are the detailed information about a table. But if you go one by one to these different database objects on the left side of your SQL Developer, tables, views, indexes, they have almost similar tabs in there. Not 100% similar, because for some objects, some of these are not applicable. Okay, let's say index. Some other objects here, database objects, do not really have an index. Okay, but for the most part, this is the structure. And at the very last tab, you see the SQL, which is showing you the DDL statement, or the statement used to create that object. Although DDL is not just constrained. I mean, DDL is not just about create. There are other DDL statements like alter. Okay, so that is for another conversation. Okay, so I hope you learned something new from this. This is part of the series, ongoing series on SQL Developer tips, and SQL Developer being the GUI tool of Oracle, bundled when you download and install the Oracle database. And it's really very helpful for somebody, especially or somebody who already knows the Oracle or some SQL. But even for those who are just starting to learn, it's also a good tool. Okay, so I hope you learned something. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click subscribe and spread the word. And you can like and you can forward it to your good friends. Okay, I hope to see you in the next video.